was Sheila Wilson, and I lived in Hathersage until I was married. I have very happy memories of Hathersage. I know people go all over today to Lanzarote or America, but when we used to go to Sunday school, we had to go 3 times a day, I can tell you, on a Sunday. We had a Sunday school trip, and that was up to Mary Oller Henshaw then, and her father Ray, at their farm. And they was in a big field, and the ladies at the Sunday school, Mrs. Midgley, she was a Sunday school teacher. Yeah. Vera Marsden, because we used to torment her, terrible. Joe Cripps, he was another. John Stafford, the Methodist minister for years. We had a paper bag, white paper bag with a couple of sandwiches, a bun and something else in it. And we just played in the field, and to us it was absolutely marvellous. I mean, today they'd just laugh at you if you thought that's all you were doing. But to us it was really lovely. We were the first family to move into number 6 Moreland Road when the new council houses were built. And there was Mrs. and Mrs. Brocklehurst next door at one side. There was Mr. and Mrs. John Dalton at the other side. There was Mr. and Mrs. Knowles next again. And then at the other side there was Mrs. Charlie and her husband. She was Gladys Wilson actually, but we always called her Mrs. Charlie because her husband was called Charlie. Happy memories on Moreland Road when we were growing up. And the Hibberts lived in Mrs. Langley, she married again. But there were Billy Hibbert and all them, they lived on Moreland Road. Jean and Joyce and Desmond Williams, they lived on the first one. Mr. and Mrs. Frost. Tom Greenwood, he used to cut men's hair in his house, 1937. I think that's when the school opened, And George Lawrence gave it to and then of course he went into Sheffield during the bombing to see his workers were around. He was killed with them. I remember that, ever so plainly. We as children we knew it was the war, but we didn't realise really the awful significance of it and how terrible it was. When there was an air raid, they used to get us up and put us under the glory hole. That was under the stairs, and our barrel, of course we'd bare feet, and with a cat, Tibby, and it had kittens. And one night we went in, and then she started screaming her head off, and these kittens were clinging to her bare feet. And then one night there was thick snow on the ground, just during the war, and my granny had set the chimney on fire. Well, of course it was blackout. And my granddad, he was a very impatient little man, and he was jumping up and down. Myra, Myra, the Germans are coming, I can hear them coming. They'll bomb us all, we'll all be killed, and then they'll blame us. I always remember that. So were ration books, sweet rationing, because we had sweet coupons. You used to have to save them up if you wanted them. But Mrs. Simmons was ever so good. She'd always put you an extra bit of something in, like you shouldn't have had really with your coupons. They never had any children, they couldn't have them. But she was lovely with children. Of course, you didn't see tin fruit or anything like that. We didn't see bananas or oranges. I remember Mr. Roach, he had a greengrocer's shop up Back Lane. And when first having bananas and oranges, I remember that's as plain as anything that we had a banana. I mean, now if they're a bit ripe, I don't eat them, but then they were absolute luxury. Billy Bockin's shop at the bottom. It was a very dark shop because they never had any lighting on, and they never had a fire ever. He was a very clever man, a lovely man. But none of them ever met. I think we did one. There was Delia, there was Bertha. She used to peer at you through sweet bottles. You didn't know she was even there, And all of a sudden she'd say, "Can I help you?" Frighten you to death. And if you went in and Billy was serving you, he always had a great big overcoat thing on. And because they were so cold, and fingerless gloves. And his fingers were always blue, numb. And if he asked for something that he hadn't got, he'd say, "Just a minute." And he'd nip out the back door, run up to Bannerman's and get whatever he wanted and come back and sell it you. I know there was old-fashioned jars of sweets. They'd all those lined up, sort of like a wall, really. But he'd sell anything, really. It was always so dark in there, Yeah. But he was a lovely man. Yeah. Lovely man. Very well educated. Maida once. Hers was a clothes shop, and the corner cupboard was next door, which is where the bottom bank was. I don't know what they are now. There was 2 Hancocks, bottom Hancocks and top Hancocks. There was Eric Barksby's hardware shop at the bottom. There was my Uncle Albert and Auntie Edith's hardware shop at the top, opposite near the chemist. There was Mr. Rastall's fruit shop. Mr. Littlewood, Asa Littlewood. My mother would never let us call us Asa. He used to say, call me Asa. You don't call him, he's Mr. to you. So we never did call him Asa Littlewood. And he made the best potted meat we ever had in his lives. And even now, nobody can make potted meat like Mr. Littlewood can. Kennings had a showroom and everything there. Got flooded out. And it smashed the window and the cars were floated. Yeah. And there was Hemmings' butcher shop at the bottom. Mr. and Mrs. Hemmings and Joy Hemmings, she was their daughter. That's now still a butcher shop. There was Bannerman's at the top. They sold lovely little bread buns with sugar on top. We always call them Bannerman's Bouncers. And they were a penny. There was Jack Pierce opposite. He was a clothes shop. There was Prince's at the top of Crossland Road. I think that was some sort of clothes shop, if I remember rightly. Mrs. Simmons, where our Simon lives now, Simon Wilson, at bottom of Fern Royd, that was a grocer's shop. Ibbetson's in the corner farm. We used to fetch milk from there in a can. One night, me and our Beryl were going, it was dark. We had like a billy can thing. And when we were coming on, this man was coming out, sort of, as we thought, only being kids, thought he was following us. He wasn't. And of course, we ran up Jennell to where Mr. and Mrs. Billy Simmons lived. And he followed us. And of course, he lived up there. And we swung this milk and all milk shot out. My mother went mad when we got home. I was at New Mills Grammar School and we were in French lesson. Somebody came in and said something to her and Miss Hughes started crying and she took us all into assembly and said the king had died. And I remember that as plain as anything. He had the king's funeral, obviously. It seemed a long time to me till she was actually crowned. There's so much to put into place. He was a very popular king. Apparently he had a very bad temper, very volatile, but he was a good king. When it was the coronation day, they had a television in the Methodist schoolroom because very few people had televisions then in the houses, and I sat all day. And I sat all day and watched it. And I remember thinking when Philip knelt to her, I thought, how romantic. I thought that was the loveliest bit in it, really. And I remember the golden coat, seeing that, and it was so marvellous to see it all. You really felt part of it. I worked at Gardeners up Sheffield Road. They were a lovely family. And John, when it was the coronation, he built a lovely scale model of the golden coach. I remember that. He used to stand in his bedroom. Yeah, I know. I sat all day and watched it. And I loved all the music, all the pageantry of it, really. There were a lot of people there and it was a lovely atmosphere. The chairs got very hard after sitting on them a bit. But I remember just sitting fascinated by it. Thought the whole thing was wonderful. Some had a tear in their eye when she was actually crowned, and it was a lovely experience and something that's always stayed with me. I remember thinking when they put the crown on her head, she'll be wondering if he's going to stay on, because apparently it was very heavy and it must have been a real burden to her actually, because she had it on a long time and it seemed so colourful.
Thank you ever so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to reminisce. Happy days.